So day three is in the books at training camp. I'm going to talk to you a lot about the majority of DEA's post game interview, which focused a lot on the defense, especially the defensive ends and defensive leadership. We'll talk about big plays or players from both sides of the ball during practice, and of course, give the obligatory injury update. I'm Tim. Let's talk Saints. So DA's press conference. I don't have time to record it and clip it. And we may go into detail a little later on some of these topics because once again, it's a good Q&A question when it got to the meat of it. Kind of started with some generic questions. A few points he made. One of them did note that today the offense, especially, he said it happened somewhat, but it seems to be happening a little more now. At least starting to get off some explosive plays. Uh, the defense probably still overall had the upper hand, and probably why a large focus of his. He was up there for like 14 minutes. It seemed like 10 of it was kind of about the stuff we're going to talk about on the defensive side. And overall, he seems very pleased with the focus and the energy and the attention to detail that they are getting from the players. And kind of that's being echoed. I was fortunate to kind of when practice was going on or right when it was ending, being close to Twitter, and a lot of the stuff that he talked about in leadership, and also some of those attention to detail, getting work done, a lot of energy, a lot of focus out there today. They were echoing. So I'm assuming that was coming from. There's probably another media portion of the practice they were able to attend and kind of seen with their own eyes. I hope so, because all this is the kind of stuff that would make me very, very happy to see on a regular basis. Get all this together in training camp and get it moving forward. But they kind of, if you remember, talked about yesterday, he kind of had a little blurb about talking about the defensive ends. They're kind of fighting for playing time and chance to get on the field, but there wasn't a long explanation. I mean, he got pressed, and it kind of started with Granderson because when he was talking about the DNs, Granderson's name didn't come up, and he was asked about that. And basically, he started talking. Look, that guy, since he showed up here, has progressed. It's just focus and dedication and the hard work he put in. He's gotten consistently better. They brought up the contract, and he's like, he's DA's opinion, what he was talking about. He said that had nothing to do with it. That's who he is. He's that kind of guy. He's got bigger, stronger over his time here since he showed up as a rookie. He said he's the type of guy that does that anyway. He doesn't quit. He fights hard on the field. The other day, as Jason said, he's a dog from the second he walks out there to the second he leaves. The kind of player you want as a young player, because he is relatively young, to be the next guy to take the mantle, that he's the next Cam Jordan type leadership, just driving force on that defense and that front line, which is good to see. And it's really good that DA was talking about him because I've always said, or not always said, within the last year or so, I've said that his trajectory, I thought, was following a lot along Trey Hendrickson lines. And that was the one that got away, was Trey Hendrickson. That was a royal mess all the way around. Don't really want to talk about the excuses the club had or whether or not money played a part or the fact that Davenport was a first-round pick. All that stuff. Water under the bridge. I'm happy to see now that in kind of along the lines with what they did with Shaheed last week, starting to recognize some young talent, paying them accordingly, because you're going to have to. You got to find that market value and versus what their expectations are to keep them around to see if you can keep developing them and getting them better. So when DA was talking about Granderson, he said it. I listened to this a couple times to make sure I got it right, but he said Granderson earned the right to be someone the team can count on. And on the face of it, that's kind of a weird statement, but it's kind of true because he was basically an undrafted guy that showed up in 4 years, has kind of parlayed everything into um, a nice contract, a healthy spot on this team, a starting spot, a key player we're going to be counting on. DA's right. He's earned that right because we are counting on him, and he had to sit there and work his tail off and earn it. And he did it. Again, kind of reminds me of Trey Hendrickson. They started pressing him about, well, you didn't mention him when you were breaking down the defensive ends, but you did talk about by name Chase Young, Cam Jordan, uh, Turner, and Foskey. And he came right out in just an extreme moment of honesty, I thought. But, he started breaking it down. He says, look, Chase is coming in with an injury. Now, he's out there on a limited basis and looking like he's working his way back in, and they don't want to rush him. They kind of know what they got in him, and we'll come back to that in a second. But still, he's coming off an injury. He has something to prove, and that, hey, I'm good. And how many snaps can he get? All that's got to be worked out. But in a weird sort of way, it kind of goes back to earning the right to be someone that the team can count on. And that's what this training camp for Chase Young is. That's exactly what his tryout is for. Granderson's not a question mark, but you start working past the Chase Young question mark at Cam Jordan going, and he's talking about we have, and he's a guy that's earned the right, to be counted on by the team. But 14 years in a league, we just don't know. We don't know what we can get out of him, or how we can use him, because even if he's providing that elite play that he can provide, we have to figure out how many times a game he can provide it, because just to arbitrarily put a number on it, if it's 35 snaps, well, you don't want him out there for 45, and you don't want to run him down. If you can find that happy medium, Scott, a while back in one of the podcasts, said load management. Kind of hate the word, but in this case, I'm going, yeah, you're probably going to have to load manage Cam Jordan to make sure he is on the field when you need him on the field, being Cam Jordan. So there's that question mark. Turner and Foskey, he flat out said it. They have ability. He thinks they're capable of doing it, but at this point, they need to go out and prove it. Amen, brother. Because I think every Saints fan saying some version of the same thing. I know some have given up completely on him. I haven't yet, but I'm running out of patience, and I think just about everybody else is. I think the organization may be running out of patience with both of them too. So hopefully they get the message. Talked before about Dennis Allen starting to learn the art of coach speak through the media. I think he's constantly sending a message here. You guys have to do it. But a little more on Foskey. They later on, they were asking, he said, well, it looks like he's had 3 good days of practice from everything we saw. And he admitted, yeah, he has. So little, maybe talking through the media to give him a little confidence boost that he needs. It's like it's DA's encouraged. We're very encouraged what we're seeing. The signs we have witnessed these first 3 practices, and said arrows pointing up. It's a trending up situation. In all fairness, and Foskey where he was last year, it couldn't possibly trend down, I don't think. But up is where he has to go. It's going to have to kind of be an accelerated pace at some point. Hopefully he's getting there. We'll see. But look, Foskey he is a big part of this whole. I've said it over and over. He's got to show up, make plays this year for the Saints. And he did say a little more, talking about Chase Young a little later, that he didn't realize. I mean, he said, I knew Chase was big, but until I met him, I realized he's big, and we know how fast and athletic he is. And he's like, that's the guy that type of guy that we really want to start building this organization around on the edge. And I'm like, well, there he is. But he said what really impressed him was since he showed up, just on his motivation and work ethic to get on the field. He wants to get on the field and play. Now it is a contract year for him, so yeah, he definitely wants to get on the field and play. But regardless, he's worked his tail off. And Jason said it the other night: if he's a bridge player for only 1 year, I'll take the bridge. Just get in there, be healthy, wreak havoc, and just beat up the quarterback every time he drops back to throw the ball. That's what I need to see from Chase Young. Um, and that kind of segued into a weird sort of way the question was asked. Dennis had to kind of like, but if you watch, you'll see. So they kind of got to the point they were beating around the bush, but they're really asking, "Hey, our pass rush wasn't good last year, and that how did that affect us?" Well, no duh, and pretty much everywhere on the defense when your defensive front is not playing up to your expectations, and those are the words that DA used. And he was talking about you have to earn the right to rush the passer, which I thought was a very interesting comment. Basically, you got to play on first and second down, or whatever down to get into the down and distance when we know they're throwing the ball. That's how you earn the right to rush the passer. And we talked about it before that the Saints' philosophy is they don't do a whole lot of, especially with their edges, going, hey, don't worry about the run, just sell out and bring pressure. Some teams do. So I think, first of all, if we're not going to see a style change from the defense, that's what that tells me. It's like, no, it's pretty much look, you guys on the edge, we're going to put a lot on your plate, but we expect you to do it. That ties back to the young guys like Turner and Foskey, turning the corner and finally answering questions. But he also brought up that it's not only about rushing the passer, it's about finishing at the quarterback. I think sometimes we forget that pressure's nice and hurries and all that, moving quarterbacks off their spot um, does affect them and can help your defense. But the bottom line, when you see that sack total go down, because it did last year, not being able to get off the field on third down, well, a couple more sacks, likely you'd have been off the field on third down. Playing the field position game, couple more sacks. Maybe you get that a little extra benefit of field position. You get a field goal, a shorter field goal, maybe to win the game, or you hold them, back on their end of the field a little easier and making it harder for them to drive. So it's a lot of what ifs. They go in and they get it. But you know that if you bring the pass rush, those things can't happen, but you're also helping your back seven. Corners, safeties, linebackers all get a I don't want to say a break, but they don't have to quite defend in coverage for as long if you're getting in there, obviously. So, um, but that all just led up. It's like he's admitting, it's like, look, we didn't live up to our standard in 2023, and we got to do better. And no truer words have been spoken by a head coach in my mind. But however, I don't know if I've ever heard him in the last year while this was going on say anything along those veins. So, hey, first step at fixing your problems is admitting you have a problem, identifying it, then you can work on fixing it. So even that to me in a weird sort of way is some type of progress. Um, the last part in Tyrann Mathieu, also the Honey Badger, also had a little media Q&A and a little bit about leadership came up both with the end of DA and with Honey Badger. So I'm gonna kind of tie those two together with tweets again from the media at practices the last few days. Several times, it's talking about Demario Davis, Cam Jordan, and Tyrann Mathieu's leadership. So that kind of came up as a topic for discussion for DA, which I thought was very interesting because I kind of assumed that's the three guys you need to lead, and it's convenient. It's three veteran players, all great players at all three levels: defensive lineman, a linebacker, and a defensive back. But DA did talk about it a little bit. They were asking, well, Demario seems demonstrative, and he just kind of broke it down this way in very simply. And I think Honey Badger, when he had his time was kind of echoing this in his leadership style and passing on information he learned from veteran players. And he mentioned like Larry Fitzgerald, and I'm like, and Patrick Peterson. I'm like, who that would be two good ones to learn a lot from. But talking about the three of them, um, the A's like they've always displayed leadership. Um, and he acknowledged, yes, we've had a lot of it in three practices, that they are holding players accountable and they're pushing the players just as much as the coaches are. Like, he admitted like veteran leaders need to do. He said, um, and it's an interesting style. He said Demario can be very vocal, very much out there, kind of the yelling, rah-rah, intense guy, and we've all seen it. Cam kind of also, and he said Honey Badger's more of the type. He said people don't realize how much of a leader he is because he's not as quite as vocal as those two. Definitely not as vocal as Demario Davis, but in his own way he is, because DA was saying he's the guy that can pull players, especially young players, aside and kind of whisper in their ear, kind of give them what they need to hear, what they need to do, what they should be doing. And a lot of players do respond to that. Also, not only the Demario Davis um, vocal leadership, quite quite loudly sometimes, but that's him. And Cam's I, I've I have seen at game times Cam on the sideline working with, and I don't mean running drills or anything, but sort of the same thing. He can be a little vocal, but pulling guys aside and having a conversation and talking and going, and apparently he does an awful lot of that in practice. You kind of assume he would if you saw it on game day. So I felt like this is a real focus on the defense. Um, that needed to be talked about because DA ended up focusing so much on the edge, and the edge is so important. And there's so many potentially good players there, and pretty much all but Granderson are a question mark in some way, shape, or form. Some not quite so bad as others, but still question marks nonetheless. And we cannot have question marks on the edge, come the season. So just kind of the rundown so far of the information kind of starting to come out about what actually happened at practice. Going to start with the injury because Marshawn Lattimore, and I put this in quotes because apparently this is how it was described, a little bit of a hip flexor, left practice. Ross Jackson or Nick Underhill or Mike Triplett, they had so many tweets and retweets between each other. Um, I don't remember which one originally posted, but I think it's at some form they all kind of reported as it. I kept seeing it as not seen at practice, which was offensive lineman Shane Lemieux and Dustin Heron, and defensive lineman Trajan Jeffcoat, and seen on the side at times at practice was Kendre Miller, running back Juwan Johnson, tight end, and Tano Pascal, defensive lineman. So I'm not really sure what that means. What's the better scenario? The guy's not there; they're getting treatments and rehab or something, or so they can't be there, and the guys that there, or I don't know, but there it is. So all six of them definitely missed, and apparently there's some difference that wasn't explained between which group you're in. It not seen or seen at times on the sideline. There it is. But the offense, DA said, starting to see more explosive plays. The media that was at practice said they're starting to perk it up a little bit, starting to really see some nice stuff going on. Da brought up that even while that's going on, the defense is still taking the ball away at times, which is good. And I it's hard to judge right now. Again, as we talked about in the last video, the starting points, the defense is already starting way up here, and the offense is having to catch up. So there's going to be a lot of that. But even if the offense is struggling a little bit, but they can still hit big plays downfield or make big plays in the running game downfield, That's a positive sign in the right direction. And on day 3, I'm okay with that. Um, they said Carr looked much better today. I saw a stat that he 10 of 12 combined in 7 and 7s on team drills. Now he did throw one interception, and that was Jordan Howden got him off a ball that was it, off of Stanley Morgan's hands. So may not have been on Carr, may have been on Morgan. I don't really know. Didn't see the play, but it was just mentioned that it wasn't a clean pick by Howden. It was off a tip, off the receiver. Um, but Olave and Cedric Wilson both caught nice passes deep. Olave caught his over from Carr with over Alante Taylor, and then after the catch, Jonathan Abram came up behind him, tried to punch the ball out, and Olave held on. Good to see because we want the yak. And to get the yak, you got to protect the ball from stuff like that happening. The one on Cedric Wilson, I've seen several tweets talking about. I'm hoping somebody posts a video because I really want to see it. Because apparently Kool-Aid was running with the ones because Lattimore's little bit of a hip flexor, and also at times was running in the nickel. Also, don't know if that mean Alante Taylor slid out to the outside or if they had one of the other corners there, but it was noted that Kool-Aid was getting some work in the nickel slot. But on that particular play, Kool-Aid had Cedric Wilson, and they said he was blanketing Wilson on the sideline, and Carr just dropped a solid dime right past McKinstry, right into Wilson's hands, who caught the ball. So I'm like, that's the stuff we want to see in this offense. That we want the space, we want to find the open guys, go through your progressions, do all that great stuff. But you know what? Sometimes the defense can cover all that stuff and give you not a lot of options. But when you can be that guy, as Jason was saying the other night, you can give us a moment. Well, that's a moment. Everybody's blanking it. We need a big play. And you drop it in the bucket right over a good cornerback where he's helpless. A receiver holds on to it, picks up the yards he needs or whatever. So definitely want to see more of that at Carr and get that ingrained and ready to see in the regular season. In direct contrast of what DA said yesterday, we go, no continuity in offensive line. The ones are going to stay ones unless the twos take the spot. Lucas Patrick got work at left guard with the ones and Saldivari with the twos. Now, I don't know if they were swapping around or if that's the way it was the whole practice or what happened. No real information on that other than that little blurb, but there it is. But we know Patrick, there was a good shot he was gonna be the left guard. He coming from Chicago, there was a good chance he could win that job. So we'll see how that plays out. Um, Defensively, they had the 2 picks. Howden and Rezjon Wright, cornerback, grabbed a pick off Nathan Peterman later on in practice. Um, Also mentioned too, I didn't see this in the practice blurbs or anything, but a reporter was asking when they were doing the whole defensive end um, Q&A with DA about Granderson apparently having 2 sacks in team drills, or would have gotten credit for 2 sacks in team drills. They're not in pads, but um, so that's good. Bit of information to find out when you've just had a big long conversation on we need better edge play, we need more sacks. Well, you guys counting on and who's earned the right for all of us to count on him is stepping up in day 3 and hoping leading the way to that resurgence from those guys on the edge. So that's it for day 3 so far. There'll probably be some more stuff coming in. I was recording this about 4:00, 4:30. Um, so as stuff comes in, probably have some follow-up videos maybe a little later in this first half week, these first 3 days. But I'm like I said earlier, I'm going to try really hard at some point around 6ish or 7ish, kind of give you whatever update I can give you, or let's talk about whatever it is that might be relevant that I can find that we can talk about. So until next time, until right after next practice, hopefully, we're going to get together. So make sure you've You got the subscribe button hit, you got the notification hit. Drop the comments in there. Just let me know what you guys are thinking, what you're seeing, what you're hearing, what I'm missing. Put it in there. So I'll respond accordingly. So thank you very much. And until the next time I see you, I'm Tim. Peace out and who dat.